Among all those present, only Taoist Huyan remained calm at this revelation, having already witnessed Hanli's mantra, treasured access before. Bathed in resplendent golden light, Hanli slipped free of the go-board projection as if unbound by heaven or earth, appearing beside Feng Qiandu and Qi Qianxiao in the blink of an eye. Alarm and dread flashed through Feng Qiandu's eyes. Black light surged across his body, yet it flickered weakly as he struggled desperately against the encircling golden ripples. Qi Tianxiao fared no better. Gray light bloomed around him, releasing corrosive law power that gnawed at the golden waves. Yet those ripples, imbued with vast time law might, remained unmoved, as steady and eternal as the flow of ages. "Is this all you have, Elder Feng?" Hanli said coldly. "Then it's my turn." With a casual sweep of his sleeve, two streaks of azure light shot forth, resolving into tiny azure swords. They pierced through the pair's protective spiritual light as easily as silk, striking straight through their glabellas with dull thuds. Walnut-sized holes appeared, yet no blood spilled. Their bodies continued drifting forward, but the light in their eyes rapidly dimmed. Hanli's expression did not change. Another sweep of his sleeve sent azure light washing over them, stripping away their storage tools, immortal treasures, and nascent souls, all of which vanished into his sleeve. With a hand seal, the mantra-treasured axis withdrew into his body, and the golden ripples faded. Heaven and earth returned to stillness. The two bodies struck the ground heavily. Moments ago, Feng Tiandu and Qi Tianxiao had been the most fearsome presences in the palace. Now they were nothing but lifeless husks. A sharp breath rippled through the crowd as all eyes turned toward Hanli. Filled with shock and wary awe, even Taoist Huyan was stunned, letting out an amused chuckle. Hanli glanced around, brows knitting slightly. Revealing such power before so many could invite future trouble. Yet pride stirred within him. In the past, upon entering the northern glacial immortal region, he had lived under constant pursuit, forced to tread carefully at every step. Now, having reached mid-golden immortal and grasped time laws, he feared no golden immortal. Moreover, he already had plans for, after leaving the infernal Frost Immortal Manor, as the restraints vanished, Jintong regained her freedom and glared at the corpses. "Why did you kill them, Uncle? I wanted to do it myself." "I gave you a chance," Hanli replied with a wry smile. "You missed it." Before she could protest further, he swept her up in azure light and flew toward the palace's edge. Yet he halted midair, gaze snapping toward the green pill cauldron. The cauldron was shaking violently once more. White flames beneath it surged skyward, engulfing its lower half. A terrifying heat flooded the palace. Space shimmered and twisted, and the ground near the cauldron began to melt. The gray statues recoiled in fear, retreating hastily as their yellow go-board projection dissipated. They soon returned to their original positions, while everyone else retreated to a safe distance. Eyes fixed on the cauldron, green spirit patterns flared across its surface. The lid trembled as thick white smoke billowed outward, thunderous rumbles echoing from within before stabilizing. Then a clear ringing rang out. The remaining 3 dragons glowed with radiant 5-colored light, heralding the formation of more pills. Astonishment and elation spread through the crowd. Unlike before, there had been no cooldown. The sudden eruption of white flames had forcefully accelerated the refinement, a perilous gamble that could easily have ruined everything. World's origin chi churned above the palace, golden clouds spiraling into a colossal vortex. 3 streaks of silver light plunged down, crashing into the roof as golden and silver radiance clashed once more. After a muffled boom, both lights vanished. Everyone surged forward again, careful to keep their distance. Soon, the 3 dragons shone brilliantly, each releasing a high zenith pill from its mouth. Spirit domains erupted across the palace as cultivators converged. Though Hanli already possessed 2 such pills, more were always welcome, and he prepared to advance. When a streak of gray light suddenly burst from his body, it was the soul nurturing burner, its talismans now dull and useless. Hanli's heart jolted. He lashed out with a giant golden palm projection, but grasped only an afterimage. The gray light moved with terrifying speed, reaching the cauldron in an instant, utterly unaffected by the surrounding domains. Like lightning, it swept up all 3 high zenith pills, then flashed above the golden chair. In the span of a breath, everything froze. The burner exploded, and the soul fragment drifted free, laughing loudly. "I knew I could count on you, kid," it said, casting Hanli a glance before plunging into the living corpse seated on the golden chair, pills in tow. 9 golden stone pillars erupted from the ground, golden lights surging upward to form a thick barrier around the chair. Radiance flashed across it, unbreakable in appearance, while rippling gray light spread over the living corpse. Even through the barrier, a powerful vitality could be sensed awakening within. At that moment, 2 figures descended beside the chair, the Southern Dawn Race's golden immortals, faces alight with excitement. Instantly, 3 golden puppets appeared to block them, hurling bolts of golden lightning. "Get lost!" the elderly woman roared. Dark red law threads shot forth, converging into a blade of crimson light that swept through the air, radiating overwhelming power. Hanli's pupils constricted. The might of those laws was no weaker than his own time laws. The crimson blade accelerated, passing through the 3 puppets like a shadow. Their lightning bolts trembled, then detonated violently. The puppets split at the waist and collapsed lifelessly. Without slowing, the blade struck the golden barrier with tremendous force, shaking the entire palace and sending ripples across the light shield. Yet in the next instant, the barrier stilled once more, unbroken and radiant as ever. The elderly woman cast a glance at the golden barrier, a flicker of delight and approval flashing through her aged eyes. The elderly man, however, remained silent, his gaze locked firmly upon the living corpse sealed within the golden radiance, his thoughts inscrutable. At that moment, Luo Qinghai swept through the air and landed before the barrier as well. "What exactly are you planning, Grand Palace Master Luo?" the elderly man demanded coldly. "What am I planning?" Luo Qinghai sneered. "Most of the high zenith pills are still inside that thing's body. Are you trying to keep them all for yourselves?" Even as he spoke, he began chanting an incantation, radiant blue light bursting forth around him. The elderly man's expression darkened as he prepared to act, but the elderly woman lifted a hand to stop him. "Let him be," she said calmly. "He may do as he wishes." The elderly man frowned, yet obeyed in the end. Fiery blue light flared across Luo Qinghai's body as an overwhelming gun. High zenith aura surged outward. With a sweep of his sleeve, the massive blue staff projection manifested once more, carrying a terrifying might as it smashed into the golden barrier. The palace quaked violently. The barrier shuddered, but once again it held firm. Luo Qinghai's face sank slightly, and shock flickered across the faces of everyone present at the barrier's resilience. Silence fell over the palace, broken only by the hiss of the scorching white flames beneath the pill cauldron. "What's the origin of that soul fragment inside your soul-nurturing burner, fellow Taoist Li?" Taoist Huyan asked as he approached Han Li. Curiosity stirred among the others, and their gazes converged on Han Li. After a brief pause, he replied evenly, "I found the burner within some ruins. It seemed unusual, so I kept it. I wasn't aware that a soul fragment resided inside." Though the explanation rang hollow, Taoist Huyan merely nodded without pressing further. The rest were unconvinced as well, yet none voiced their doubts. Luo Qinghai snorted coldly, cast one last glance at the barrier, and strode away. The vast flow palace cultivators hurried after him, conversing through voice transmission. Han Li remained where he was, studying the living corpse with a contemplative gaze. How were that soul fragment and this corpse connected? Had the fragment deliberately guided him here? And Worm 3, who had urged him long ago to refine the Origin Void pill, had she already known of this corpse's existence within the High Zenith Palace? If so, what was her aim? Questions churned endlessly, yet answers eluded him. In the end, Han Li shook his head and set them aside. As long as their schemes did not threaten his interests, he had no intention of interfering. His goal had already been achieved. He had secured 2 high zenith pills. There was no reason to linger. Just as he turned to leave, his gaze snapped back to the corpse beneath the barrier. For an instant, he thought he saw one of its fingers twitch. The movement was fleeting, so brief that he could not be certain it was real. "What is it, fellow Taoist Li?" Taoist Huyan asked via voice transmission. Han Li scanned the others. None seemed to have noticed anything. He shook his head. Nothing. Taoist Huyan let the matter drop and said instead, "It seems there are no more treasures here. Shall we move elsewhere?" Hanli instinctively looked up at the palace roof and its surrounding restrictions. The structure had withstood multiple pill tribulations, an irresistible temptation to any Tao pill master. Yet his spirit domain confirmed that the roof was inseparable from the palace itself. Even after such fierce conflict, not a single wall bore damage. This was a near indestructible whole. Removing the roof was impossible. With a quiet sigh, Hanli nodded. Aside from the pills, he had gained something else: insight. Witnessing the Golden Palace endure 4 tribulations had allowed him to grasp many profound aspects of its restrictions, some resembling those of his integrated 5 Extremes mountain. "Have you recorded everything?" he asked inwardly. Within his body, Taoist Xie held a white jade slip bearing a complete imprint of the palace's restrictions and responded affirmatively. A hint of joy flickered through Hanli's eyes. If he could integrate these principles into his mountain, the results might rival the golden roof itself, an immense boon for future pill refinement. At that instant, a loud crack echoed from the green cauldron. Hanli turned to see Jintong perched atop it in beetle form, gnawing away with gusto. He hadn't even noticed her approach. The white flames had already faded, and green light shimmered weakly over the cauldron in futile resistance. The gray statues flanking the hall remained motionless. "What are you doing, Jintong?" Hanli darted over, wincing at the chunk already missing. Mouth full, she answered muffledly, "I'm starving after all that work. You told me to wait until the pills were done." "There's no time to eat it now," Hanli sighed, sweeping his sleeve as azure light enveloped the cauldron. The damage was already done. Scolding her was pointless, and repairing such a treasure was beyond him. It could only become her future meal. The others glanced over, then promptly looked away. With the pills gone and the cauldron damaged, it was no longer worth contesting, especially not against a golden immortal versed in time laws. With another wave of his sleeve, the azure light ripped the cauldron free from the ground, shaking the palace as its rooted legs were torn loose. The green glow faded, and Hanli stowed both cauldron and Jintong into a spirit beast pouch. At that same instant, a white shadow shot out and vanished into his body. Within, Taoist Xie sat cross-legged as white light flared, condensing into the flame of essence. Now in humanoid form, it had grown larger and more defined, its aura vastly stronger, waves of scorching heat rolling outward. Taoist Xie frowned slightly and shifted away. The tiny fiery figure opened its mouth, expelling a high zenith pill, marked with silver patterns forming a 3-legged golden crow. Its aura far surpassed the others. With a toss, the pill vanished amid spatial ripples. Inside the palace, Hanli's eyes gleamed faintly as he walked back toward Taoist Huyan and the rest. Suddenly, 2 streaks of light descended, resolving into Shui Ying and Gong Shuju. They surveyed the chaotic hall at once. Gong Shuju smiled benevolently. Well, quite the spectacle," he said, his soft voice echoing clearly. Hanli frowned. He could not discern the man's cultivation, yet an inexplicable sense of unease crept into his heart. Luo Qinghai, meanwhile, stared at Shui Ying in confusion. Gong Shuju's smile widened as his gaze swept the hall. My lucky day indeed. So many reincarnation palace cultivators gathered together, and several big fish among them. Coming here was the right choice. As his words fell, a near-transparent barrier slowly spread outward, enveloping the entire Golden Palace. Shrouded within Gong Shuju's spirit domain, everyone instinctively examined both their own condition and the changes in the surrounding space. Hanli gripped his azure bamboo cloud swarm sword tightly, faint arcs of lightning leaping across the blade. The spirit domain before him was semi-transparent and eerily calm, giving off no discernible fluctuations at all, as though it scarcely existed. Yet this very stillness made his unease deepen. Shu Ying stepped forward, her gaze sweeping arrogantly across the palace as she announced coldly, "Esteemed immortal envoy Gongshu of the Heavenly Court has arrived. All of you, step forward and pay your respects." Subtle changes rippled through everyone's expressions. The title, Immortal Envoy, was no empty honor. It signified both great authority within the Heavenly Court and cultivation no lower than the early high zenith stage Jade Immortal Realm. Taoist Huyan and Yunni exchanged guarded looks, while the 2 Southern Dawn race Golden Immortals frowned deeply. Hanli, however, was reminded at once of He Kang, the true immortal he had encountered in the spirit realm, while resisting the Stemborer Queen. That man had also claimed to be an immortal emissary, subordinate to an immortal envoy. From He Kang, Han Li had first learned that the spirit refinement technique was forbidden in the Immortal Realm, and that those who cultivated it would be relentlessly hunted by immortal envoys and emissaries alike. After a brief pause, Luo Qinghai walked toward Gong Shuju and bowed respectfully. Luo Qinghai of the Vast Flow Palace pays his respects to the esteemed immortal envoy. Grand Palace Master Luo, Gong Shuju replied with a smile. Your Vast Flow Palace has caused no small amount of trouble for our Northern Glacial Immortal Palace over the years. Unruffled, Luo Qinghai responded calmly, Our Vast Flow Palace has always abided by the Heavenly Court's rules and has never colluded with wicked factions such as the Reincarnation Palace. Since you have come to eradicate these Reincarnation Palace cultivators, we shall withdraw at once and avoid hindering your mission. As he spoke, he gestured to Nan Keming and the others, signaling them to leave. At that very moment, however, a flash of golden light streaked across the semi-transparent barrier. The entire spirit domain surged with overwhelming law power. Han Li's brows knit tightly as he felt the world's origin chi freeze solid, utterly immobilized. What does this mean, esteemed immortal envoy? Luo Qinghai asked. Until I have clarified everything here, no one is permitted to leave. Gong Shuju replied evenly. Shui Ying's eyes burned as she accused. Luo Qinghai, you deceived us and trapped us in that lake, then colluded with these Reincarnation Palace scoundrels to murder Palace Master Xiao. You must already be one of them. A bitter smile tugged at Luo Qinghai's lips. That is a misunderstanding, Deputy Palace Master Shui. When I realized the restriction at the lake was formidable, I turned back to find Palace Master Xiao so we could rescue you together. Unfortunately, I was delayed by matters here and could not return in time. As for Palace Master Xiao, I swear upon my life that I bore him no ill will and never sought his death. Speaking of which, did something happen to him? I did not see him along the way. As he spoke, his gaze subtly swept across the others present, shifting suspicion elsewhere. Shui Ying bristled, about to retort, but Gong Shuju raised a hand to stop her. Over the years, Xiao Jinhan's scheme to unite the entire Northern Glacial Immortal region, Gong Shuju said indifferently. The Heavenly Court opposed this, yet he refused to obey. Now that he has perished, one can only say he has fallen upon his own sword. Luo Qinghai feigned shock. What? Palace Master Xiao has died? Gong Shuju ignored him and continued. Even so, his actions seem to have produced a result beneficial to me. In that instant, an immense, invisible force descended from all directions. Everyone hurriedly released their spirit domains to resist it. Han Li and the others clustered together, stacking their domains in layers, yet the pressure scarcely diminished. What sort of law power is this? Ouyang Kuishan gasped, sweat beading on his brow. It appears to be Qi laws, Taoist Hu Yan said grimly, and his mastery surpasses even Feng Tiandu's. Han Li said nothing, but his thoughts churned rapidly as he searched for a path of escape. Knowing he must wait for the right moment, his earlier premonition had been correct. So many prominent figures clashing here had inevitably drawn a transcendent overseer. Though invincible among golden immortals with his time laws, he was powerless against a high zenith jade immortal. In the end, he could only fault himself for lingering too long. Nan Keming fared worst of all. Though sheltered within Luo Qinghai's spirit domain, she felt suffocated by agony, her entire body racked with pain, her ears ringing until the world seemed distant and unreal. Seeing his disciple's condition, Luo Qinghai's restraint finally shattered. He thrust both hands forward, conjuring a colossal vortex of blue light that swallowed Gong Shuju in an instant. Indistinct water dragons roared within, the vortex shrinking and compressing with crushing force, intent on grinding its captive to dust, yet an invisible wall of qi stood between Gong Shu and the vortex, unmoved no matter the pressure. Unsurprised, Luo Qinghai tightened the vortex further while signaling his subordinates. Having only just forced his way into the high zenith stage, he was already at his limit. Even temporary containment strained him greatly. The four Vast Flow Palace Golden Immortals leapt into formation around Luo Qinghai and Nan Keming, each producing a jade badge. As they chanted in unison, ancient sea beast images on the badges flared, blue light linking together into a square array. Their faces quickly paled as intricate patterns spread across the ground, radiating intense spatial fluctuations. In the past, 4 separate arrays were required to unleash the Four Seas roaming array. Gong Shuju's voice drifted from within the vortex, tinged with approval. To achieve it with merely 4 jade badges. Impressive indeed, Grand Palace Master Luo. Luo Qinghai answered only by forming hand seals more rapidly. Though simplified, the array would suffice to open a path of escape. The central patterns shone ever brighter, the spatial turbulence mounting, until abruptly, the vortex exploded. Chaotic white qi surged around Gong Shuju, raging like a violent storm mere inches from his body. "Did I not say no one may leave until I finish my inquiry?" he asked, still smiling, though a chill seized every vast flow palace cultivator. With a casual squeeze of his fist, 4 thunderous blasts rang out as the jade badges shattered one after another. The array collapsed in a burst of blue light. The 4 golden immortals spat blood. 2 fell lifelessly to the ground. The fair-skinned scholar hurriedly fed them pills, but within the spirit domain, origin chi was utterly stagnant. Only pills and immortal origin stones could replenish power. Gong Shuju glanced at Luo Qinghai with faint disdain, then strode toward Han Li. As he passed the vast flow palace cultivators, space twisted violently, crushing the 2 fallen golden immortals into mangled heaps. Their nascent souls fled in terror toward Luo Qinghai, only to be seized by a sweep of qi and drawn into Gong Shuju's sleeve. Luo Qinghai's fury boiled over, yet he could only stand trembling, fists clenched, powerless to act. "Qi Li Jiao, Taoist Huyan, Worm 3. The 3 of you have committed no small number of sins, especially you," Gong Shuju said as he halted, lifting a finger to point at the elderly woman of the Southern Dawn race. Taoist Huyan's eyes flickered with confusion as he looked toward her. He had heard the name Worm 3 before, yet never imagined that the person beside him was that notorious figure in disguise. Worm 3's expression stiffened for an instant, but her gaze remained steady, devoid of panic. The elderly man at her side, however, was far less composed. Yunni turned toward Taoist Huyan, worry plain in her eyes. "I searched everywhere for you 3, only to find the infernal frost immortal manor gathering you all together. How convenient. It saves me quite a bit of effort," Gong Shuju continued, his smile widening. Just as his words faded, his gaze shifted to the living corpses seated upon the golden chair. Han Li's heart tightened. He raised his voice and shouted, "Everyone! All of us were involved in Xiao Jinhan's death. That alone puts us in direct opposition to the Immortal Palace. This immortal envoy has trapped us within his spirit domain to wipe us out. If we want to live, we can only survive by standing together." Gong Shuju glanced at Han Li, smiling faintly, making no move to interrupt. As though Han Li's words were of no consequence, a bitter smile touched Luo Qinghai's lips. With Han Li's declaration, his own involvement was now beyond denial. Even if he had not struck the blow himself, Gong Shuju would never believe otherwise, yet he was untroubled. Han Li was right. Gong Shuju intended to kill everyone present. Cooperation was the only path left. If he survived, then the vast flow palace would simply defect to the reincarnation palace, which had long sought to recruit them. "Take this, Menger. It will help you withstand his spirit domain. Once the fighting begins, I may not be able to protect you," Luo Qinghai said, handing Nan Kemeng a blue bead the size of a longan and transmitting a secret mantra. Nan Kemeng's face was pale, but he nodded calmly. "Do not worry, Master." She swallowed the bead and began to chant. Soft blue light emerged from her lower abdomen, swelling outward into a barrier 10 feet across. Instantly, the crushing pressure eased, as if a gentle tide had wrapped around her. Han Li's eyes narrowed in surprise. A profound heavenly spirit domain. Using a profound heavenly treasure, Luo Qinghai had forged a pseudo-spirit domain to resist Gong Shuju's. This alone showed that he had fully accepted Han Li's proposal. The others reached the same conclusion. One by one, they spread out, encircling Gong Shuju and Shui Ying. "What are you doing? How dare you disrespect Immortal Envoy Gongshu? Are you trying to oppose the heavenly court?" Shui Ying shouted, though she unconsciously edged closer to Gong Shuju, the pressure weighing heavily on her. "So you believe numbers will decide the outcome?" Gong Shuju sighed, shaking his head. "If that were true, why would anyone bother cultivating? How tragic. I wonder how long the northern glacial immortal region will take to recover after today." A sharp ringing echoed through space. Agony pierced everyone's ears, and the pressure surged several-fold. Luo Qinghai reacted instantly, forming seals as a turbulent sphere of blue light expanded, enveloping everyone and easing the strain. "You've made decent progress with sea laws," Gong Shuju remarked. "Your crimes were not severe. I once intended to punish you with 1,000,000 years of servitude, but since you insist on courting death." Taoist Hu Yan and the others followed suit, raising multicolored barriers as law powers surged toward Gong Shuju and Shui Ying. Han Li alone refrained from unleashing his time spirit domain. His reserves had been heavily drained earlier, and against a high zenith jade immortal, every shred of law power had to be used with precision. Gong Shuju stood calmly amid the overlapping domains. With a casual sweep of his sleeve, golden light burst forth, forming two halberd-wielding puppets clad in radiant armor. Dense metal law power erupted from them, their auras rivaling late golden immortals. "Go." The puppets charged. Vast Flow Palace cultivators intercepted one, while Uinquishan and another Dao Lord confronted the other. Yunni drifted toward Shui Ying, drawing a flicker of concern from Taoist Hu Yan. She was already wounded, but there was no time for distraction. "Only by giving everything do we have a chance." Han Li transmitted. "Your time laws will be crucial," Luo Qinghai replied grimly. "I'll act when it matters. I trust you still have hidden cards," Han Li answered. Luo Qinghai remained silent as Gong Shuju made his move. Complex seals flashed, and milky mist surged behind Han Li and the others, forming humanoid figures. Shock rippled through the group. Each misty figure mirrored its counterpart in form, an aura. "Domain spirits?" Taoist Hu Yan murmured. "No," Luo Qinghai said. "They're too similar." This is another manifestation of his chi law. Before more could be said, the misty figures attacked. Taoist Hu Yan's flaming sword clashed against its mirror, firewalls rising as blades met again and again. Luo Qinghai's opponent dissolved into vapor, crashing like endless waves against his defenses. Worm, Three, and Qi Li Jiao were likewise entangled. Han Li faced his own reflection, azure bamboo cloud swarm sword in hand. The misty figure mirrored his caution, observing in silence. Gong Shuju watched from afar, arms crossed, making no move. Suddenly, Han Li surged forward and vanished. Reappearing behind the misty figure, he struck, only for it to dissolve into mist at the last instant. "It has my abilities as well?" Han Li vanished again. As he reappeared, he swept his sword backward. The misty figure materialized in front of him, striking in tandem. Clang, Han Li staggered back. The misty figure slid away as azure sword chi shredded its blade. Gong Shuju's brows tightened ever so slightly as his gaze fixed on the azure bamboo cloud swarm sword in Han Li's hand. Han Li's brows knit as his gaze fixed upon the mist-shrouded figure before him. White vapor curled around its palm, and from that fog another long sword slowly condensed, edge glimmering faintly. What in the heavens is this thing? He activated his bright sight spirit eyes, and within each misty figure he saw a pulsing orb of light, beating with steady rhythm. The one locked in battle with Taoist Hu Yan bore a crimson core. Luo Qinghai's opponent held a blue glow. The figure confronting Han Li himself possessed a pale golden radiance. Beyond this, however, there was nothing else of note. No flesh, no true form. Just as Han Li considered summoning his mantra Treasured Axis to probe deeper, a weak yet urgent voice echoed in his mind. It was Nan Kaming, and to Han Li's surprise, everyone present could hear her as well. "These misty figures have no substance," she said. "Each contains law power that corresponds exactly to yours. Above their heads is a white thread, invisible to ordinary sight, linked to the immortal envoy's fingertips. At the same time, another thread connects their hearts directly to yours." Han Li cast a discreet glance toward Gong Shuju's folded arms. Sure enough, Gong Shuju's fingers twitched almost imperceptibly, like a puppeteer manipulating hidden strings. As Han Li exchanged blows with the misty figure before him, he surveyed the battlefield and quickly realized that every such figure was wielding the same law power as its assigned opponent. Enlightenment struck him at once. "Fellow Taoists," Han Li transmitted urgently, "stop wasting energy on these figures. They are nothing but reflections of ourselves, conjured by the immortal envoy's law powers. Their strength mirrors ours. We won't defeat them easily." "I reached the same conclusion," Luo Qinghai replied. "But how do we deal with them?" "Do not expend your law powers any further." Hanli warned. These reflections draw their strength directly from us through those mist threads. No wonder my law power is draining so fast, Taoist Huyan exclaimed, nearly twice the usual rate. He means to grind us down, Worm 3 growled. Once our law powers are exhausted, we'll be helpless. Then what's the solution? Qi Li Jiao asked sharply. These things have no will of their own, Han Li said calmly. They're merely extensions of Gongshuju's ability. If we stop using law powers and focus everything on Gongshuju himself, this technique will collapse. That's our best chance. Agreed, Taoist Huyan laughed grimly. If this drags on, we're dead anyway. Might as well stake it all. Luo Qinghai glanced at Nan Keming. At her nod, he declared, I concur. Worm 3 and Qi Li Jiao voiced their assent, and the 5 moved in unison. The crimson flames cloaking Taoist Huyan vanished in an instant. He spun through the air like a raging vortex and hurled himself straight at his misty counterpart. The flames surrounding that figure faded as well, and it mirrored his charge exactly. They collided midair with a thunderous boom. Taoist Huyan allowed the force to hurl him backward, using the rebound to shoot toward Gongshuju. At the same moment, Han Li and the others disengaged through varied maneuvers, abandoning their mirrored foes and surging toward Gongshuju. A flicker of surprise crossed Gongshuju's eyes. So you've seen through it, he chuckled softly. It seems I underestimated you. Still, it changes nothing. With a violent twist of his left hand, a tremendous erupted. All the misty figures were dragged back toward him, instantly reappearing in the paths of Han Li and the others. You think abstaining from law powers will save you? Gongshuju sneered. You never stood a chance. At that very instant, golden ripples shimmered behind him. Han Li emerged from nothingness and slashed with his azure bamboo cloud swarm sword, golden lightning crackling along its edge. Just as the blade neared Gongshuju's waist, Gongshuju vanished in a flash of white light. In his place appeared a misty figure bearing Han Li's own visage, which was cleaved apart and torn to shreds. Gongshuju reappeared nearby, his smile gone, replaced by icy fury. Han Li sighed inwardly in disappointment. Gongshuju frowned deeply and muttered, Time Law? Were you the one who killed Tao Yu? No one else here cultivates the mantra axis scripture. That's right, Han Li replied with a fearless grin. I killed him. Gongshuju's face darkened. Laugh while you can. Once I deliver you to Elder Tao, your nascent soul will be forged into a soul lamp. You'll burn for 100,000 years at Tao Yu's altar, wishing you'd been refined into a golden soul pill instead. Han Li's expression never wavered. I've already tasted a golden soul pill, he said coolly. I wonder how one refined from a jade immortal's nascent soul tastes. He stepped forward and charged again. Insolent. Gongshuju's gaze turned frigid. With his left hand, he continued controlling the misty figures, while his right grasped the air, summoning a slender white jade longsword. As he slashed, invisible chi rippled outward, transforming into countless razor-thin blade projections that swept toward Han Li. Han Li's bright-sight spirit eyes flared, revealing every trajectory. His sword danced in rapid arcs, layers of azure sword chi unfolding around him like overlapping shields, blocking the incoming blades. Even so, awe stirred in his heart. Such mastery of law power was far beyond the reach of ordinary golden immortals. Under the constant suppression of Gongshuju's spirit domain, Han Li fought fiercely to close the distance. Forming a hand seal with one hand, he slashed with the other. The surrounding sword chi blossomed like a lotus, surging toward Gongshuju in a single devastating wave. Gongshuju raised his sword horizontally and flicked his wrist, erecting a towering wall of white chi. Clangs rang out endlessly as the azure sword chi struck and embedded themselves, yet failed to break through. A trace of disappointment flickered in Gongshuju's eyes. It seems I overestimated you. Han Li smiled. With a light tap of his finger on the azure bamboo cloud swarm sword, all the embedded sword chi detonated at once. A terrifying shockwave tore a massive hole through the white wall and thundered outward, shaking the palace to its foundations. The golden palace trembled violently. With the green pill cauldron already devoured by Jin Tong and most formations ruined, cracks spread rapidly across the walls. Caught closest to the blast, Gongshuju staggered backward. Before he could recover, a crimson blur appeared behind him. Defying all physical constraints, Gongshuju spun just in time to see Taoist Huyan descending. fiery longsword cleaving straight toward his head. Steel rang sharply as Gong Shuju raised his blade to parry. Flames and sword chi exploded in all directions. At the instant their swords met, a crimson gourd burst forth from Taoist Huyan's pouch. It hovered above them, its mouth angled downward toward Gong Shuju. Ancient runes blazed across its surface, radiating searing heat. With a loud pop, the gourd stopper flew free on its own.